Happy New Year! Today is January 1st. The first meal of this week is going to be fermented blueberry oatmeal bake. And if you want the recipe for this, I will link it in the description box below. Also today we're going to be making some sourdough bread and some regular bread and getting some other things ready for the week. So you can see here's my husband's meal, mine, my daughter's, and we will have some yogurt as well. And you can see I am almost out of yogurt, so we will be making some more yogurt tonight. We have our sourdough rising here, so we're going to be prepping this here shortly. Here's our sourdough. If you want the recipe on how I make this round artisan loaf of sourdough or my process on how I do it, I will link a video to that in the description box below. Now we are going to make our regular yeasted bread. And this recipe will make 2 loaves. If you would like this recipe or the process on how to make it, I also have a video and an article on this recipe and then my process for making it. And it comes with a free download as well. I just put it in there, move it around, flip it over. Okay. Now I'm going to put plastic wrap over this and stick it in the oven. Door closed, oven off, only the light on. Only the oven light on. And this will rise and we'll go through the process. Again, this whole process is in that video and then also in a free download. I've got the regular yeasted bread on its second rise now. The sourdough bread is still working on rising. This can take a few hours. Now I'm going to prep some things that we will need for the rest of the week of meals. It's more affordable to buy it in block and shred it yourself than it is buying it pre-shredded, at least where I live, locally it is. I'm just going to store the shredded cheese in this bag in the refrigerator. And that 1 8-ounce block of cheese made about 2 packed cups of shredded cheese. I'm going to go ahead and slice up some of this cheese because I do need some cheese slices. And then the rest of the block I will just keep stored in the fridge. You can also make your own homemade cheese as well. This cheese is not ready to use yet. This regular yeasted bread dough has risen for the second time. The oven just beeped at me, let me know that it is fully preheated, so now we're going to bake these. I'm getting ready to prepare some of the fresh produce that we will be using this week, but I decided to bring it all out so you can see it at once. Now this is just the fresh produce that we're going to be using this week. We're also going to be using some canned vegetables and some frozen vegetables as well, such as bell peppers, black olives, corn, peas, carrots, green beans, things like that, okay? Oh, and garlic. Okay, so what we have here, we have some carrots. Now it is more affordable to buy whole carrots and cut them yourself than it is to buy baby carrots. We are not going to use all of these. This is 2 pounds. There's some sweet potatoes, a couple onions, some garlic, some avocados, a head of lettuce, some Brussels sprouts, tomatoes, and you can use whatever tomatoes you want, but when I priced everything out, as of right now, the Roma tomatoes were the cheapest tomato that I could get, and they will work for what we're using. Even though the recipe calls for slicing tomatoes, these will work as well. Potatoes, now I'm not going to use all these potatoes. This is a 5-pound bag, I might only use 2 pounds. spinach. Now, spinach, this is a 1 pound container. We're not going to use the full 1 pound. We'll probably only use half of it for one meal. The rest of it is going to be as we want it to go into smoothies. And here we have some fresh cilantro. I just keep it in a glass of water, well, a mason jar, with water and then a plastic bag over it in the fridge. It really helps it to last 2 to 4 weeks in the fridge, easy. All right, so now let's go ahead and chop some of these things up. Yesterday, whenever I showed you all of the produce that we had bought for this week, I forgot to show you the fruit also for this week. So we got a couple bunches of bananas, and we like to freeze these bananas whenever they start to get a little brown. We like to peel them and freeze them for smoothies later or banana bread later. And I do have a video on that. I'll also link in the description box. And we also got some little cuties, little mandarin oranges. We got a couple apples. So that is the fruit that we will be having this week. The first thing I'm going to prep are these onions. And the reason I'm going to prep these onions is because onions make me cry. I mean, they make me cry so much that I cannot see. I'm basically blind. When I was in my very early 20s, I found out how to keep onions from making me cry and from burning my eyes so bad. And I found it out completely by accident. This was before the internet was what it is now, and I didn't even know of YouTube. I'm not even sure if YouTube even existed back then, but if it did, I didn't know anything about it. Oh, it's burning my eyes already. Let me try to quickly get through this. Okay, so if you have a bad spot here on an onion or in here, just cut it out. You can see where I cut this bad spot off, and then I cut this core right here. It was starting to get bad. So you can see it's now fresh, nice, and perfect. Whew. Yeah, one day, several years ago, I found this out as I was preparing produce, and I was cutting onions and crying, and then I didn't need the whole onion, so I put the chopped onion in the fridge, and then a few days later I went to use it again and noticed that the onions did not bother me whatsoever. And so that was when I started doing this, and now there are some times I forget to do it, and I suffer through. Oh, goodness. Anyway, we're going to have to pause this here because I am a one-eyed pirate right now. All right, I am back. So we're just going to put these onions in the fridge. And since this was the first thing that I did, while I prepare the rest of the produce, these will be chilling in the fridge. And hopefully by the time I am done with the rest of the produce, these will be cold enough to where I can go ahead and chop these up today as well. So I've already got it dirty, but what do you think of my new cutting board? My brother-in-law, he made one for everyone in the family for Christmas. So in case some of you are thinking, this is too pretty to, damage with a knife. So he made it to where there is a 90-degree edge here, and this is going to be my cutting surface. And then he made a beveled edge, so when I want to display it, this is the side that people will see. The next thing we're going to prepare are going to be some sweet potatoes, okay? And we're going to have some baked sweet potatoes. So what I'm going to do is wash these off and put them in the oven right now. That way they will be ready for when we want them later in the week. But I already have the oven hot. It is baking the regular yeasted bread, and then shortly thereafter it will bake the sourdough bread. So while the oven is hot, I want to utilize that heat. So these will be baking while the bread's baking. Now for the carrots. Now, when I am cooking carrots, first of all, I'm going to dice these up because they're going in the supper tonight, which is roasted chicken with carrots and onions and potatoes, and then rice and Brussels sprouts on the side. So when I'm just cooking whole carrots like this, the only thing I do not shave them off, or peel them. I do cut the tops off and the ends off. So I just cut, like I said, the tops and ends off. And then it depends on the size of the carrot. So you can see this one is quite a bit bigger than this one, okay, in diameter as well. So it depends on the size of the carrot as to whether or not I split it in half lengthwise, like that, okay? And then also whether or not I split it in half again and make little carrot sticks, okay? So on those bigger ones, now that's just a preference, make them however big you want. But this is the size that we like in our roast of any kind. Okay, so I'm going to do that for all of these. Now, let me go back to what I was saying about how I don't peel them. The outside skin is just part of the food. So to me, I feel like it's a waste. I mean, have you ever peeled all of your carrots and then have this big mass of shredded carrot skins that you just toss out? That is food you're tossing out. Now in canning, they do recommend that you peel them just because of bacteria. But like I said, we are cooking these and consuming right away. So I don't have to worry about that. Another way to make this meal more affordable is we also, even as we speak, we have several carrots out in the garden that I could harvest right now, but I don't want to. It's muddy out there. We just had some snow and the snow just melted, and so it's muddy. So I just decided to go out and buy some. Preparing produce like this, some people really dread it. I mean, it does. It takes time and it is some work, but I find it relaxing. I actually enjoy cooking more. I don't know, for me, I just really enjoy preparing the produce like this. I enjoy cutting it up, except the onions. Okay, so I just pulled our breads out of the oven and they're pretty hot. So let me talk about the bread for a minute. Yes, we do make our own homemade bread, and yes, you can find healthy store-bought breads, but you're definitely going to pay for them. Making homemade bread does require time and energy and forethought, but once you get in that mindset and that habit, it really becomes second nature. So it doesn't really take too much time, honestly. Most of the time is just sit while it's rising or baking. It really doesn't take much time. So if you don't already make your own homemade bread, I would encourage you, it's a new year. Like I said, today's January 1st. So if you don't already make your own homemade bread of either kind, sourdough or regular yeasted bread, I encourage you to go ahead and try it. There's plenty of videos out there and recipes, and like I said, I have a video for each and recipes for each, so that can be a good place for you to start. But making your own homemade bread, not only is it most likely and hopefully a lot healthier than what you find in the stores, even the healthy stuff, it will save you a bunch of money, and it's a skill set. It's something new that you learn that you can do. Anyone can do it. So on these Brussels sprouts, I have already washed them, as you can see by all the water I've got going on here. Now, these Brussels sprouts, they came from Aldi's, and these actually come in a microwavable bag, and I do not think it's a very good idea to microwave chemicals into your food. But anyhow, so as you can see, we don't microwave the bag. We just cut it open and then use them as if they're just fresh. That's the most affordable way. So if I was to buy the fresh, loose Brussels sprouts anywhere, this way is actually more affordable. So I just wanted to bring that up and mention that. So whenever you see this microwavable, you don't think that you're only stuck with having to microwave it. You are not. Okay, so the way that I'm going to prepare these Brussels sprouts, well, how we're going to eat them, is we're going to skillet. We're going to blacken them in the skillet. So to prepare that, I just cut off the little stalk because That doesn't taste good. And any loose leaves that come off the outer edge, we just dispose of. And then for these bigger ones like this, I cut in half. But for the smaller ones, there's not, like this one's smaller, you see? Oh, and you also want to look for any leaves that have, mold or damage, like that one there. I'll pick this outer leaf off. Okay. But you can see this one is quite a bit smaller than this one. So this one I'm going to cut in half, and this one I'm going to leave whole. And you want to cut it in half long ways, right through the core, okay? So you can see it's about equal now, okay? All right, so I'm just going to do that to all of them. Cut off the stalk, trim any bad outer leaves, and either slice them in half or leave them whole depending on their size. Doing this way, this will save time later when it comes to supper time. And just like that, we have our Brussels sprouts ready to go. So we'll put a lid on this and stick it in the fridge until tonight when we make it for supper. And in case you're curious, that was 1 pound of Brussels sprouts. All right, before we move on, my sourdough is almost ready to go into the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and take my cast iron Dutch oven and the lid and stick them in the oven to go ahead and get hot. And they just went right in there with the sweet potatoes, still in the oven. Now let's go ahead and get our lettuce rinsed, washed, and prepared. Now some people, whenever they go to decore their lettuce, they take the core in and they slap it really hard straight down onto a hard surface and it pops the core out. It does work. I don't like that personally because I rinse mine with water, so when I have done that in the past, it just shoots water everywhere and then little bits of lettuce go flying. So I just take a knife, I cut just the very end of the core off and cut halfway down, just like that. Now this particular head of lettuce, surprisingly, has really no core. It's the size of my pinky nail right there. But some of them, the cores go way up high. In that case, what I do is after I split it in half, I just take my knife and then I do a triangle pattern like this, which I'm not trying very hard because 2 reasons. I don't have a core, and second, I don't want to cut my hand. Anyway, but I just go in a triangle pattern and then I just tear the core out. Simple and no mess. So sometimes you get very loose outer leaves, and a lot of people, they just, peel them off, throw them away. If they're really, nasty looking, soggy looking, droopy, wilted, or diseased or pest, then yeah, throw them away. But these look just as good as the rest of them. So I'm going to put these to the side and I will cut those up with this in a minute. Or if you want to have burgers or sandwiches, just cut them up into little sandwich size pieces and use them for that. So after I cut my head of lettuce in half this way, which I still need to do this one, then I just rotate it 90 degrees and just cut it like this. The cast iron Dutch oven is preheated and I sprinkled some cornmeal in the bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and get our sourdough out of its little proofing basket. Now, let's go ahead. We have the head of lettuce all chopped up and we're going to store it in this Ziploc bag in the fridge. Lining your bowl or your bag with paper towels and then putting your food in it. The paper towels help to absorb any excess moisture, and it really truly does increase the life of the produce in the fridge by weeks. When I was in my very early 20s, I learned this on accident with grapes. We had bought some grapes and I had destemmed them and had rinsed them off. And then I had them in the little strainer basket so they could, drain off all the excess moisture. But before I could even wait for that, something came up and we had to leave the house. So I just quickly put a piece of paper towel in the bottom of a bowl, to absorb that excess moisture. And I put the grapes in there, put a lid on it, and stuck them in the fridge. And they were still good weeks later. And so we've done this with everything ever since. Blueberries, strawberries, lettuce, it doesn't matter. It's not necessary for onions. Tomatoes, it doesn't preserve as long as the other things. But anyway, with more watery stuff, except for tomatoes, it really works really well. The last thing I'm going to prepare today, aside from the onions, is these tomatoes. Okay. So these are some Roma tomatoes, and I bought a 4-pack here. For this week, I actually only need 2. I've already washed them off, and so on one of them, I'm going to slice, and the other one I'm going to chop up because they're for 2 different recipes. Okay. And these are probably the biggest Roma tomatoes that I think I've ever seen. These are comparable to some of the San Marzano tomatoes that I grew last year. Okay, so these are going to be our sliced ones. And again, I am using my Rada knife. This is my tomato slicer. I think it might also be called a small bread knife. You can see it just goes through it without any problem at all. I'm a big fan of my Rada knives. Okay, so now these will get put in a little bowl with a paper towel on the bottom and put a lid on and stuck in the fridge for when we are ready to use them. Now, I am not going to prepare the avocados because obviously you don't want to, prepare them several days in advance because they'll turn brown. But if you do need to prepare them somewhat earlier and you want to mash them up a little bit, then once you mash them up, and season them however you want, and you mix in your oil, you can even add a little bit of oil on top of them, and that will help keep them from going brown so fast. But for what I'm going to use these for, I don't need them mashed. All right, and I think that is it. Just got to do the onions and my food prep will be done. I just pulled the sweet potatoes out of the oven and they are done. Okay, so you can see they are very much done. Now I'm going to let these cool completely before storing them in the fridge. The sourdough is baked. It is out of the oven. These baked sweet potatoes have cooled down completely. We will be using these with a meal tomorrow night for supper. All right, so now I'm going to make my husband's breakfast for the next 2 days. So 2 days a week, he drives off to work in the office, but the other work days, he is able to work from home. So this is what he loves, and he has been having this every day for breakfast for, I don't even know, over a decade, I'd say. All right, so we do not buy sausage, store-bought sausage. It has all the ingredients that aren't the best for you. So once a year, we buy a whole hog or 2, and the hogs that we buy, they are pasture raised. If they're fed any grain, it's organic grain. They are considered an organic hog, and we buy them from a guy where we used to live, and it's actually cheaper to buy them from him than it is to buy your pork at the stores, because you know, we get all this pork. We get Boston butts and ham, bacon, ground pork, pork tenderloin, pork steaks, pork chops, ham hocks, you know, all the bones, things like that, plus the fat that I render down for lard. And I do have a video on that. I'll link it below as well. But the point is, we get all of that pork that's organic and raised how God intended, and it all averages out to, it depends, each year is a little different, but it's usually between $3.25 and $4 something a pound. So as far as sausage goes, we just get ground pork and then we make up our own sausage seasoning, and that's what we do. I think it's been since about 2011 since we have been, you know, making our own sausage seasoning and doing it this way. So it works, it's great. All right, let's get started. All right, so for this pound of ground pork here, I'm just gonna use a tablespoon and maybe about a half of our homemade sausage seasoning. And then I just have one of these meat chopper things just to mix it in. Our youngest daughter, she is allergic to pork. So this 1 pound of pork it only has to feed my husband and I just for a couple meals. So this is actually going to be used in 3 recipes. So out of this pound of now sausage, all I need is 4 patties, and the rest will be fried up into ground sausage to go into 2 different meals. Now for my husband's breakfast that we're going to make him for the next couple days at work will be scrambled eggs mixed with ground sausage, cheese, and hot sauce. And I put them in these little, you know, egg scramble bowls, and he takes that off to work, and that's what he eats. And you can see we have the scrambled eggs. This part is done. And see, isn't that just lovely? It doesn't stick or make a mess to the skillet. When you have a properly seasoned cast iron skillet, that's what happens. Now I put the eggs in here. And now we're going to fry our sausage patties and our ground sausage. This pork that we buy, it is not very fatty at all. Now these will be breakfast for my husband and I on another day this week. The sausage is all cooked up now. So some of this sausage is going to go in here for his breakfast. So then we're going to take some of this cheese that we shredded this morning, just sprinkle it on there. And this is his habanero hot sauce. He loves this. So just a few shakes. Okay. I've already salted and peppered the eggs. Then I just divide it up into these little 2-cup containers. All right. And now he has breakfast for the next 2 days when he goes to work. So in addition to these, he also takes a variety of fruit and trail mix and sometimes applesauce or yogurt as well for snacks throughout the day. So that 1 pound of sausage has been divided into 3 breakfast items. These, and then almost half a pound will go for breakfast that we're going to have later in the week. I think in a couple days. And then the 4 sausage patties will go for another breakfast we're going to have in a few days as well. I just took the rest of the ground sausage and put it in a container in the fridge for another day. At some point, I will do a video on how to maintain and care for your cast iron, as well as how to properly season it so nothing sticks, just like you saw the sausage and the eggs. It is the ultimate non-stick. So I just pulled the chicken roast out of the oven and checked it, and it is done. I deboned the chicken that was left and also removed the skin. And I put it over here in this crock pot and just covered it with water. I will let this cook on low overnight. And then some of the broth will be used for different meals this week. We are almost out of yogurt, so we're going to go ahead and make some. This is going to go in the oven with only the light on. But remember, the night before we made yogurt and I let it sit in the oven overnight. So we're going to pull that out and stick it in the fridge, and then by the end of the day, once it's cold, or tomorrow, we can start using it. So here's the yogurt. This light yellow film on top, this is just the fat from the cream. Okay, so there you go. We just made homemade yogurt. And again, yes, you can buy yogurt. You can buy plain yogurt, you can buy plain Greek yogurt, definitely. But making it yourself saves you a lot of money, especially if you make, homemade, very healthy yogurt, or you buy store-bought healthy yogurt. Those price differences are huge. If you haven't already made your own homemade yogurt, I highly suggest that you do, not only to save you money, but also you know what's in it. And mine is healthier than any that I can get, okay? So, you control the ingredients. And also, it's very versatile. We use our plain homemade yogurt in place of sour cream. So we do not buy sour cream, we do not buy yogurt, we do not buy flavored yogurt or Greek yogurt. This is our sour cream. By making it plain, it's our sour cream. If you want it to be Greek yogurt, all you have to do is take it and strain it overnight, like in a basket with a lined cloth in it to help get off all the excess whey. And then you have Greek yogurt, because Greek yogurt is just strained yogurt, okay? To make it flavored, you just add in whatever flavorings you want. Sometimes someone in my family will add vanilla and honey or vanilla and maple syrup. I personally don't eat yogurt just plain. If I do, it's very rare. But sometimes, well, really it is when my daughter makes me. But she'll put a little bit of our homemade granola in it. Then I have to eat it, because she tells me to. Sometimes I'll mix in some homemade jelly in with it, whether it's apple jelly, blackberry jelly, doesn't matter. That gives it the sweetness that it needs, plus also the flavor, and it's perfectly fine. It works great. Here is the yogurt after it has been chilling in the fridge for a full day. You can see the yellow layer on top I was talking about, which is the cream. If you do not want any cream at all on top, then make sure that you skim off all the cream if you're dealing with raw milk. You can see it's nice and thick. I will have a video linked below on how you can make it yourself. Remember last night for supper we made that roasted chicken in the Dutch oven, and then I took all of the chicken bones, the chicken carcass. I took off as much meat by hand as possible, which was pretty much all of it, and then I took the bones and put them in the crock pot to cook on low all night long while we were sleeping for extra broth. Okay, so now we are going to sort through this and remove the bones and the skin and put the broth in the fridge for use in a couple other meals this week. So by doing this, again, we are stretching that one chicken, Okay, we are getting more meals from it, more nutrition because this was an organic chicken. This particular one was raised as close as God would intend. You're getting vitamins and minerals, collagen, all kinds of good stuff for your health, your gut, your bones, your joints, your hair, your nails, everything, okay? So you don't want to just toss those bones and skin. You know, you don't want to waste that. So this is another way to save money so you don't have to buy broth. And look, the crock pot does the work for you. While you are sleeping, it's making the broth. So there's really no reason not to. So on this one chicken, we are getting roasted chicken that we ate last night. Tonight, we are going to use some of that chicken for chicken pot pie. For lunch today, I'm going to use some of that chicken on a special kind of pizza that my daughter absolutely loves. And then tomorrow night, we're going to use some of that chicken for a special kind of soup. Right there are 4 meals that we are getting that chicken from. And then the broth, some of that broth that's in this crock pot, and then some that I strained off last night from the actual roast, those broths will be combined, and they will also go to help make the pot pie tonight, the special soup tomorrow, and if there's any left, which I figure there will be, then because there's not enough to can, I'll just stick it in the freezer for another meal in the future. Okay? So let's go ahead and go through this and see what it looks like. It's hot and steamy. I can see a pretty layer of oil on top, which is the fat, so that'll solidify in the fridge. All right, so we're going to go ahead and strain this off and filter it some, and then we're going to put the broth in the fridge. First, I'm just going to get all the skin and bones out. That way when I go to pour it, the bones aren't falling in and splashing and making a fatty mess everywhere. And here in a minute, I will tell you what you can use this for. Now I'm just pressing it out a little bit, get out the excess. All right, so there you have it. A piping hot half-gallon of beautiful, lovely chicken broth. Oh, it smells so good. Our youngest, sometimes when she wants a snack, she will just get some chicken broth. She really likes it. All right, now for these. So this is the bones and the skin, and there's just a little bit of meat left, not much at all. Okay, so these bones and skins, what can we do with them? They recommend not to feed them to your pets because since they are very brittle, you can just snap them in half. They say that whenever a dog, for example, eats them, that it can get lodged crosswise or it can poke a hole in their intestines. They say that, a lot of dogs have died that way. That's very sad. I guess I could see it happening. I've always had a dog, since birth. I have never, and all my family, they feed our dogs bones of all kinds, chicken, pork, beef, deer, it doesn't matter, squirrel, They've always had all the bones, whether raw, cooked, boiled for hours. We've never had a problem, but that's not to say that you won't have a problem. So how to use these and keep from having a problem. So there are different things you can do. You could just, compost them to where your pet can't access it. You could just take them and like scatter them out in your fenced-in garden and bury them a little bit. Or something that we did, kind of just a trial thing just to see if we could. And we did not know, still don't know if it's ever been done. It probably has. I'm kind of the mindset where if I can think it, I'm sure it's already been done. So what we tried one time last year, because I took our big roaster pan and I roasted, I think 5 or 6 of those chickens that I made yesterday. And then I cooked them down, I canned the meat, and then I also canned up a whole bunch of broth. So we had all these organic carcasses that, we didn't want to go to waste. So what we did is at this stage right here, if they weren't where we could just like crumble them with our finger, if they weren't there yet, then we put them back in the crock pot with more vinegar and cooked them longer to where we could basically crumble them. And then we took them in our food processor and pureed them. I will try to insert some pictures right here beside me if I can find them, but I did take pictures of all the steps, and in the end what it turned out to be was what looks like canned cat food, canned dog food. It looked exactly like that, it smelled exactly like that. Our animals, our dog and cats, went nuts for it. They absolutely loved it. But we made it so fine and so small to where there was no chance of, shards or anything getting caught and hurting them. So that's another way that your animals can then have this organic chicken. Of course, keep in mind, by that stage, there's probably not many, if any, nutrients or vitamins left in there. So please don't, think that, you're really giving your pet all that they need. Okay, this is just a filler, and this was just an experiment that we did. Okay, so it worked, and it's pretty neat.